welcome to Talking Cars. I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
I'm Gabe Schenhauer.
And I'm Kelly Funkhauser.
So this week we are giving our first impressions of the all-electric Lexus RZ 450e. And while Lexus has quite a range of hybrids, plug-in hybrids, this is their first electric vehicle, all-electric vehicle. And it's really the next in a family components electric powertrain with the Subaru Solterra and the Toyota BZ4X. Strictly all-wheel drive, two dual motors providing that, 313 horsepower. So Gabe, I'm going to ask you first, how does it stack up in terms of its EV-ishness? That's a word.
So, let's go a step back for a second and talk about Toyota and EVs, because Toyota is not afraid to say the truth about electric vehicles and may acknowledge that they still have limited range compared to gas cars and it takes a long time to charge them. And some people think that because Toyota is such a leader in terms of hybrid cars, of course, they're going to make good EVs, right? Well, not necessarily. And Toyota is showing that because not only it's late to the EV party, it's also coming to the party kicking and screaming. And it shows in the car itself. The EV aspects of the car are not very competitive. It has only a 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger, which means just the funnel that directs AC power into the car.
Yep.
So that means that you're going to charge at home at 20 miles of range per hour rather than 35 if you had an 11 kilowatt, which is the norm in the industry.
Yeah.
So, and we talked about it with Toyota and with Nissan, and they say, well, that doesn't matter because most people charge overnight. That's true. Most people charge overnight. But the question is, how long is your night? Because I can see a scenario where you,
I know, right?
Sleep.
Yeah.
where you came home from a night on the town at midnight, and then 6 o'clock in the morning you have to go to work. So if
that's
you're
more what Kelly does.
I was going to say, I'm not that young anymore.
or another.
Even more when you're traveling too. And how long do you have to sit and wait?
Well, when
to
you're
continue
traveling,
your trip?
exactly.
Yep.
When you're traveling, then in DC fast charging, the Lexus can take 150 kilowatt max acceptance rate, and the range is, which is all that matters in an EV, 220 miles of range for the 18-inch. option.
Right. So you're not going to be taking this on that road trip necessarily, right? So even if you're all juiced up, you're not going to go as far. So you're going to be
And with the optional 20-inch tires, 196 miles. That is pathetic.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, there's definitely, whether or not, Toyota Lexus's strategy is hybrids over EVs, there's still a market, right? Consumers are looking for EVs. And, I love EVs. And so a pure EV is still desirable.
Yep.
And so, there's going to be buyers out there. But again, going back to the range of this vehicle, right? Yeah. If you are in the market for a fully electric vehicle, the range doesn't quite cut it. Again, the charging issues. There are a lot of other options out there.
Right.
And the competition is just growing and growing. And so, how desirable will this one be? I don't think it necessarily stands out.
And two, I was going to say, when you said reluctant, kicking and screaming, is it reluctant or cautious?
You can interpret it both ways.
Yep.
Toyota is a very prudent kind of a company business-wise. I mean, it's not for nothing that they're the most profitable car companies in the world. They do things just as much as they have to, nothing above and beyond ever, and nothing more than the minimum necessary to be competitive. And speaking of the competition, you have the Genesis GV60, which is one of the nicest EVs out there at the same price. You have the Audi Q4 e-tron. You have the BMW i4, which we just finished testing. So there are a lot of really nice EVs out there at that same price range.
Right.
Yeah. This vehicle also, before we get to the actual what we liked and what we didn't like, is also, Kelly, one of the first Lexus models to get their next iteration of safety with Lexus Safety Sense Plus 3.0, the next version. So we're used to automatic emergency braking, pedestrian detection. What are the new things that suite adds? to this vehicle.
Right. So the newest Lexus Safety System Plus 3.0, if I got that in the right order, is basically their new hardware software package, right? So it's going to have similar or the same features as the 2.5 Plus and the 2.0 and things like that. But it's the latest and greatest versions of
better
all of
versions
those. Right. It does add, some, prior versions didn't have the curve speed assist, I believe is how they call it, which, so if you have adaptive cruise control or something like that on, it will, pull back on the speed that you're going to try to just assist through the curve a little bit better and things like that.
Yep.
But yes, it is the newest, latest, greatest. It came on the Lexus NX first, but that was pretty recent. RX, and then now the RZ.
Okay. And it does promise, I know we've talked a lot about direct driver monitoring to accompany its active driving assistance system. It was not, we had rented this version that we evaluated.
We'll buy our own too.
Yeah, we'll buy our own, but it wasn't on ours yet, but the plan is that it will be there.
That's right. And we did purchase two RXs, the regular gas version and then also the hybrid one. And our hybrid came with the driver monitoring camera system, whereas the other one didn't.
Right.
So we're looking at, maybe this will come optional as well.
Okay. And you said something I thought was interesting when we were talking about this car earlier about how the latest safety, we're always talking about how we want it on the base trim and equity, and you shouldn't have to pay more for safety. The counter to that, I think, is a little that these things take a ton of development.
Right.
Particularly to make them effective, one, but to also get rid of false alerts and false activation. So there's a ton of work. And at some point, manufacturers have to pay for that. You were saying something about the margins on the higher end vehicles, like the Lexus even versus the Toyota.
Exactly. So usually we see new features rolled out on the higher trims, the more expensive vehicles.
Yep.
So it makes sense that we're seeing the latest safety system, all of the latest and greatest features being added to this new vehicle, the RZ as well, because they need to recoup the research and development that goes into it. They are costly. The prices will come down. We'll start to see it trickle down into the other models.
Yeah.
But so if you're looking for all the latest and greatest, then this is where you can find it.
Yeah, it is the one, and we'll talk about, the base model versus the top end, or why you would buy a premium brand like Lexus. It's one of the things that we absolutely still see.
Speaking of buying a Lexus, and Lexus buyers are very particular, and they've gotten used to the best customer care out there. And I wonder if you put them in the RZ, not having a glove box, not having a rear wiper, all kinds of things that are a little strange about this car. I don't know how they're going to take it.
I told you, my eye doctor has like his 8th RX, not RZ, but RX. And you talk about that customer. He talks about his Lexus dealer like they're his best friends. I swear. Oh my God, I called and he's going to take mine off. He just loves his RX and has literally gotten like 8 of them. He'll go in and say, guess what I'm driving? I'm like, oh, Lexus RX. Yes. How did
but
you
the
know?
Newest one.
Yeah, the newest one. Anyway.
Right.
Other impressions, Gabe. Other than some quirky.
Other
glove box,
impressions.
but-
the car itself, it drives pretty nicely. The ride's comfortable, handling is pretty decent. Although I think that I would have reconsidered the power split between front and rear, because I notice a little too much power going into the front axle. So if you're giving a lot of gas in a corner, for instance, you might experience some understeer, like the tendency to run wide of the radius. The car is pleasant enough, but that becomes all secondary, because of the range and the charging and the EV aspects of the car. Right. And I didn't appreciate the fact that you had to struggle with unplugging and pressing the unlock button.
Should be a one-handed.
I've been on. We've been on VW and Audi's case as well. It should be tied into the central locking system. As simple as that. Right. Is there some kind of a plague of unplugging charging
you're
cars.
messing with your neighbor.
Well,
Yeah,
especially because
exactly.
you're going to be doing it often in this car because it's a lower range, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, let's not make it frustrating, please.
Right.
Yeah, that was frustrating.
Right. And speaking of the driving impressions too, when I first picked it up for my turn in the car, it had very low mileage remaining on it, but
it didn't take long,
exactly. It didn't take long to get down to the low mileage. So I started by driving it on the eco mode, and I definitely noticed, a difference between that and the normal and the sport, right?
Well, we've talked about that, the tailorability of a lot of these EVs. You can change a lot of things to make them your driving style.
Right.
Yeah.
But one thing is because again, so one strategy that a lot of EV owners learn over time is that when you are low on range, instead of using the, HVAC system to heat the vehicle, you can use like the steering wheel heat and the seat heat.
Right.
So I did try out, which we were told by Lexus about this new feature where it's kind of this radiant heat by your feet.
Yep.
Now I am the first one to have cold toes. My husband will vouch by that all day.
Popsicle toes.
Exactly. And so I really enjoyed that, especially because I was doing the, kind of trying the hyper mile type of strategy. And so it worked really well. I liked that a lot.
I am actually, I will like it probably because I'm a cool air around my face.
Yeah.
But
you got to keep those toes warm, right?
I use seat heaters all the time with air on very, very low or off. As long as my body's warmed with a radiant way, I think I will like them too.
Yes, it was great.
I will say too, I really like this whole family of EVs, the Solterra, the BZ4X, and now the RZ. I think they drive super smoothly, super quietly, and they don't have some of what I've said as EV quirkiness. So brake pedals really good, no grabby brakes, regenerative is normal. I'm sure you can tailor it, which I think you can in the RZ.
I think the paddles.
4 settings you can change.
Right.
It also you don't have a lot of what I call the eerie EV noises.
The like spaceship sound?
You don't have I call it the
whine.
humpback whale.
Yeah.
Doesn't do that.
It was very pleasant.
Very traditional backup. Beep, beep, beep.
Right. Like the Prius one that we all have heard for years.
Yes.
Right.
Still the quirky push turn.
Yeah.
I could do without the beep beep in reverse because I already know I'm in reverse. I mean, I know it's for pedestrian warning.
Right. But I think, it would be interesting to see data. I don't know what the data says, but if a pedestrian is more likely to equate that noise, the beep, 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 with something's backing up, than the humpback whale. Yeah. I would guess yes.
But Jen, while we're talking about pedestrians,
yes,
we were talking earlier about this strange feature where every time you come to a full stop in traffic, red light, whatever, the screen gets filled by the forward-facing camera.
Front camera.
So instead of the backup camera that we're all familiar with, it does a forward projection of it.
Yep.
Let's get your take on that, and then I'll tell you mine.
So my opinion of this functionality is it doesn't do a lot for me. I'm stopped. I have a full view. I have the time to look out around me. I don't want to look down. So I don't see the value of it. However, we've been talking about these front over incidents that happen in people's driveways or a very slow speed parking where you don't see a pedestrian or where she had a child. Seems to me, if that turned on when you went from park to drive and you got that initially, that would be a better implementation.
Right.
To me.
During the gear shifting, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Not the brake pedal.
And you're kind of, pushing for this on the really large vehicles, those trucks, those 3-row SUVs, right? For this car, it's not that big. So I also found it distracting is basically what my opinion on it too. Every time you came to a stop, you shouldn't be doing stuff while you're driving, changing the radio, etc. So if you're going to do that during your drive, it's better to do it at a red light, right?
Absolutely.
But what happens then is now you have this screen being taken over by this display, which is slightly redundant, not necessary. Yeah. You have to then exit out of it and then do your, it just became kind of an annoyance after a while.
I wonder if you can change that in the settings.
Yes. And tailor that away.
Yeah.
Tailor that
because
away.
I totally agree with you.
It seemed unnecessary.
Yeah. Why are you giving me a picture of the front view? Isn't that my time to do something with the radio?
Right. But the shift from park or reverse to drive, if you're in a driveway or parking lot, that seems like a better time to do it.
Yeah. The other thing too, and again, it's both the families of that Genesis GV60, Hyundai Ioniq, Kia EV6, Ioniq 5, Kia EV6, and this one. I am not a fan. Okay, I'm coming inside the car. These are some very, very sloping SUVs, wagons, hatchbacks, whatever we want to call them. So as a driver, I'm fine. I'm comfortable. I have a good driving position. I have enough visibility. Anytime you move rearward, those rear passengers have the squattiest window, just such a high belt line, very little window, and you go even further into the cargo, and your rear view is really, really compromised. To me, it's the worst thing. And if you line up an EV6 next to an RZ, next to a Venza, you'd be hard-pressed to tell me which one's which. I actually put little pictures of them in my notes.
Right. Well, and then add the Solterra too, because that
similar.
shares so much body style and components, right?
It's a form over function thing to me, and you lose a lot of functionality of that car.
Right.
But,
Right.
Yeah, visibility, particularly in the EV6, is quite limited.
Yeah.
And not to mention, none of these have rear wipers.
Yes. Right. It's too much rake to really warrant a good rear wiper. The other implementation too that was a little different, we talked about the pod or the up in your face driver screen, which I really liked in the Solterra. We saw it in the Prius that we rented. This one actually is a true heads up display. You don't have that, but that whole idea, Kelly, I'm sure from a human factors of you only have to glance down to get speed, et cetera.
That's right. So you're not always, it's not necessarily keeping your eyes on the road because you do have to change your focus, right, to see it, but they're at least in the general area, right, instead of looking down. So that head-up displays are definitely good.
I like both the pod and the heads-up display. I think they both work great. Just to touch on pricing a little bit, the base 18-inch, $59,650, top of the line luxury, $65,000, right in line, as Gabe, you said, Genesis GV60, Audi Q4, etc.
And right in line with the Lexus RX as well.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the other.
Yeah.
My opinion, I would opt, much as we've said before, for Ioniq 5 or Solterra before I would move to this RZ and spend the extra. I didn't know if it was enough of a change.
I would need more range.
You would need more range.
Yeah,
Well,
I would need more range and just more EV tailored details, and I think people will find that in the Genesis GV60.
right. And I think, as much as I loved both families, how they drive, I still move to the Hyundai Kia Genesis versions a little more. Interesting note I just added here. In the future, Lexus has promised that there will be a yoke steering wheel coming to manage steering tasks within 150 degrees of motion. So it says it will take away that hand over hand that we've all had for hundreds of years in lieu of this yoke. Even when performing things like a U-turn, it'll change the rate and the ratios so that you don't have to go
linear. So it's not 1-to-1 as you're turning. It's gonna, as you turn more, it kind of ramps up.
Yes.
And
so you should never have to go hand over hand.
Right. But then we have to
me.
deal with the yoke.
It scares me. Don't like the yoke.
I don't like the yoke in the
And
Model
what
S.
I say, as one of the things we disliked about the yoke the most
in the Tesla Model S
was the missing of the hand over hand.
That's right.
So they seem to address that. It just feels to me like we're going to have to relearn how we drive. Looking forward to the yoke.
Well, we'll have to try it.
We'll have to try it.
in
We'll
the
see,
Lexus.
because the Model S one, again, wasn't remapped, right, to have that.
Didn't have different
So we'll
rates.
try it. I'm not excited. But I'll try it. I'm willing to give it a shot.
So, of course, as Gabe already mentioned, we will be getting our own Lexus RZ 450e for formal testing. But here's a first glimpse, and we will let you know how it does. Moving on to your question. As always, keep them coming. TalkingCars@iCloud.com. They kind of are one of the coolest parts of this show. Anyway, today's question comes from Stan in San Angelo, Texas. The lithium batteries on even the best electric cars steadily lose capacity as the years go by. The batteries are so expensive to replace, parentheses, at least at the dealer, that you might as well scrap the car after 10 years or so, whereas a good gas-powered car could still have plenty of life and value at that age. I just looked at a 2013 Nissan Leaf whose battery is nearing depletion, with the local Nissan dealer telling me it would cost upwards of $19,000 to replace the batteries, if they could even get one. Are there any other decent, low-priced alternative to having an EV battery replaced by a dealer?
Well,
I'm looking at you, kid.
Yeah, the Nissan Leaf, the original 24 kilowatt hour battery, that shouldn't be a $19,000 replacement cost. It should be $5,500 according to Recurrent, a website that specializes in battery health and monitoring these kind of things. And, $5,500, that's not out of line with an ICE or internal combustion engine car that you'd have to replace an engine or a transmission after 15 years and 200,000 miles. So, but yeah, the degradation of lithium-ion battery, that's the nature of the beast. It's part of, it comes with the territory. And from what we know now, the conventional wisdom is that over 10 years, they lose about 10 to 20% of their capacity. And let me just also mention that replacing an entire battery is quite a rare occurrence.
Okay.
You can replace underperforming cells or modules inside the battery and just replace those individually and avoid the high cost of replacement of an entire battery.
I think that's true. And again, the Leaf was one of the first. The Leaf had the shorter range, I think as we're buying EVs, people need to be aware of all the little incremental changes to that battery range or battery life, be it 10% depletion over time, be it 20-inch tires that drop the range 30, miles, whatever those little things and use things. We've done towing, we've done air conditioning, cold weather, all those things. You really have to holistically take a look at where you live, how you drive, what you need it for when selecting your EV.
And the cost of electricity where you live.
Exactly. We just talked,
but also battery chemistry and technology is getting better and more efficient, and the longevity is increasing too. So the Leaf, again, as you mentioned, was one of the first.
Yeah.
We're seeing, that's somewhat outdated technology now.
Right.
And it's just going to get better.
Yeah.
So hopefully this problem goes away.
So Stan, check with your dealer, surely, for $19,000, really? Or can some modules, as Gabe said, of that battery? So maybe it's worth a different one. Stand to that point. So that will do it for this episode. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This was filmed and edited by David Abrams, Andrew Belize, and Anatoly Shumsky. Thanks so much, and we will see you next week.